The 2023 Sunday bikes are very popular bikes and there are so many different options. In this video, I'm going to go in depth about every single bike in Sunday's lineup. The whole goal here is to help you understand if one of these bikes is the right bike for you. Now, I'll be completely honest here. A lot of Sunday's bikes, in my opinion, are overpriced for the quality that you're getting. There are other bikes that come in at better value. Now, if you like Sunday for a specific reason, I don't want to tell you not to buy them. And there are some of these bikes that I think are fine value, okay? But I don't want you to buy the wrong bike, and that's why I offer a free bike recommendation for people who watch my channel. All you need to do is click the link up here on the screen and request a free bike recommendation. Just give me some information about yourself, your budget, your height, your skill level, and I'll find 3 bikes that I think are perfect for you based off of value. One of these Sunday bikes might be on that list, but they might not. And I'd hate for you to waste your time searching for a bunch of different bikes and then never find the right bike. Let me find the right bike for you, request a free bike recommendation. If you still want to watch the whole video, go ahead. There's a lot of good information in here. So let's get started with the first bike on the list. The 2023 Sunday Blueprint is a very low quality bike. This is the cheapest bike in Sunday's 2023 lineup with a 20-inch wheel, and it's made from high tensile steel. You're not going to see high-end quality components. You're not going to see a lot of aftermarket parts. You're going to see a very basic bike with the bare minimum. Now, it is a few steps above a low quality Walmart bike or any department store bike, but it's not the best bike. And I'm sure you know that because you're looking at this bike, you're looking at the price tag. There are a lot of things that go into buying a bike. And my goal here is by the end of the video, you should understand if this bike is right for you. Because while it is a low quality bike, it might be the perfect choice for some of you. The Sunday Blueprint's gonna cost you $389. The Sunday Blueprint's gonna weigh 26 pounds. Everything on this bike, for the most part, is fully upgradable and fully customizable. And this is gonna give you the freedom to replace different parts with aftermarket parts to build yourself a pretty sweet custom bike. I will mention though that a lot of the parts on here are loose ball bearings, and if you've ever taken apart a bottom bracket that's not fully sealed, you've played the game of collecting all of the ball bearings off the ground. It's a headache, and same thing with the headset. You just have to be mindful when you're making certain upgrades and double check that it's really gonna work with this bike. But for the most part, everything's fully customizable. The Sunday Blueprint does come with brakes, and there's a handful of size and color options. You're gonna have to choose between a matte kiwi with a 20-inch top tube, a matte midnight blue with a 20-inch top tube, a gloss black with a 20.5-inch top tube, and a gloss watermelon green with a 20.5-inch top tube. So the sizing that I mentioned earlier, there are 2 different size options with the Blueprint. There's a 20.00-inch top tube, and generally this is best for riders who are 5 foot, who are in between 5 foot and 5'3". If you're outside of those heights, you can still ride this bike, but it's gonna feel a little bit different. Google Dougsterbob size guide to read my size guide and understand how a bigger height or a smaller height is gonna affect how this bike handles. The other top tube size is a 20.5-inch option, and this is a very common top tube size. I'd say 70% of all BMX bikes come in this top tube size, and this size is gonna be best for riders who are between 5'6" and 5'9". When we get to the quality section though, keep in mind I probably won't recommend this bike for most riders who are between 5'6" and 5'9" due to the very low quality, but we'll talk about that later. Aside from the top tube size, there are other important geometries that you need to consider if you want your bike to have a certain feeling and a certain way of handling. The Blueprint has a 75-degree head tube angle, an 8.75-inch standover height. The chainstay length is between 13.2 inches and 13.5 inches. If you run your back wheel slammed, your chainstay is going to be 13.2. If you run it all the way back, it's going to be 13.5. In the middle is obviously in the middle of those 2 things. And the bottom bracket height is going to be 11.5 inches. To give kind of my opinion on this geometry, it's very standard for the most part. The 2 things that caught my eye is the 8.75-inch standover height. This is a 1/4 of an inch smaller than what I would consider an average standover height. This is good because the riders that should be riding this bike are fairly small, and they're going to appreciate the 8.75-inch standover height. Now, on the contrary, the chainstay length is fairly long in my opinion. This is a pretty long chainstay length, and what this is going to do is it's going to make it harder to maneuver the bike. The back end is going to be more stable and more slow. It's not going to be very responsive. And for a smaller rider, this can cause some issues because it might feel like the bike is very hard to control. And I don't want new young riders to get discouraged because of how that bike feels. And so if you get the blueprint and you're like, man, it's so hard to manual, that is probably why, and you might want to consider a smaller bike with something under 13 inches for the chainstay. There are a couple part geometries I just want to touch on real quick. The crank arm lengths are 160 millimeters. This is the smallest crank arm length that you're going to find on a complete BMX bike. And again, this is great for those smaller riders who should be riding the bike. For someone who's 5 foot or 5'3", they're going to appreciate how the 160 millimeter cranks feel. If you're over 6 foot and you get on this bike, it's going to feel terrible for you, but you shouldn't be on this bike anyway. So let's talk about the quality of the bike. The frame is fully high tensile steel. The bars are fully high tensile steel. The forks are fully high tensile steel. The cranks are 8-spline chromoly cranks. They're pretty chunky. They're not, I mean, they're good that they're chromoly, okay? But these are something that they're very heavy and they're not the best quality cranks, but they are chromoly, okay? And we'll just leave it at that. The rims are single wall rim. And so with this level of quality, this bike scores like a 1 to 2 in the quality score on the Dougsterbob app. It's not a very high scoring bike, and it's designed that way. This is a budget friendly bike with a low quality score. Now, I want to just touch on the weight limit that I'm going to give this bike. I'd say you shouldn't be riding this bike if you weigh over 130 pounds. If you're under 130 pounds, you don't weigh enough, and chances are you're not going to put enough pressure on the bike to cause damage to these low quality high tensile steel parts. If someone like me who weighs over 200 gets on this bike, I'm going to have a very bad time. And so when I push bikes to people, it's not because I want you to buy the most expensive bike. If you're 5 foot and you weigh under 130 pounds, you're gonna be chilling riding this bike. You're gonna like it, it's got cool colors, you're gonna be chilling. But if you're bigger and you get on this bike, you're gonna have a terrible experience with it. Trust me on this. You don't wanna buy 4 of these bikes before you understand how right I am, okay? We'll just leave it there. So if you do have the Sunday blueprint, it's gonna be best to upgrade the wheels and the bearings all around. Unsealed bearings are something that you see on very low quality bikes, and we've got an unsealed bottom bracket, unsealed headset, unsealed front wheel, unsealed back wheel, so it'd be good to upgrade those parts. What happens with unsealed components is they just don't last very long. And when you're riding, when you're progressing, when you're learning tricks, you want your bike to roll as smoothly as possible. Otherwise, it feels like you're driving a tank down the sidewalk, okay? It's not a very fun feeling. It's much smoother to ride a bike down a sidewalk and not a tank that's clunking around like this. So keep an eye on that. That's the first upgrade I would do. The second upgrade I would do is the tires. Generally, when you upgrade tires, buy something like the Demolition Momentums. They're lightweight tires and they roll super smooth. A lot of people overlook how important tires are as an upgrade because they don't think so much about it. But when you upgrade your tires, you're gonna save a lot of weight and it's gonna change the way your bike feels. Like, I can guarantee it. And then the third thing I'd change here would probably just be something a little bit more higher quality, like the wheels if you didn't do the wheels with the bearings, or just get some new forks or some new handlebars. Really slowly over time, if this is the bike you get, you're gonna ride, you're gonna progress, and things are gonna start to break. And you're gonna make upgrades one by one. I had the exact same experience. I had a DK Reaction bike, all high tensile steel, way too small for me. And I rode, and then one day I bent my handlebars, and I was like, oh man. So then I bought some new handlebars, and then I bent my forks, and so I bought some new forks. And 8 months of doing that, I had a pretty much custom bike, and that's kind of what the blueprint is. The alternative is something like the Sunday Soundwave, where it's already a fully custom bike that costs $1,000 more than the blueprint. And if you get a bike like that, you're not going to be doing the breaking and upgrading game. A bike like the blueprint is kind of designed to start you out into BMX, help you get going, and then upgrade parts as you go. The 2023 Sunday Primer is a fairly popular bike in Sunday's 2023 lineup. It sits at the bottom in terms of quality for most BMX bikes that are available right now. It's not a really high quality bike, and it's designed for brand new riders to get on something with pro level geometry without the high price tag. So if you wanted a bike similar to the Primer with really high quality stuff, it's gonna cost you like $1,300. The Primer is significantly cheaper, but the quality is obviously cheaper. That's just how these things go. In this video, I'm gonna tell you everything you need to know about the Sunday Primer, and I'm gonna help you decide if you should spend your hard-earned money on this bike, or maybe suggest some alternative options. I don't want you to get a bad bike. I don't want you wasting your money. I want you to get into the sport with a perfect bike, and I want you to love the sport. Okay, that's the goal here. Let's get right into the video. So the Sunday Primer weighs 25.8 pounds. This is a fairly lightweight, and most BMX bikes that you see that are complete bikes aren't gonna weigh less than 27 pounds. So this is a pretty light bike. It's gonna cost you $439. Everything on the bike is fully upgradable and fully customizable. However, there are a few unsealed bearings throughout the bike that we'll talk about later that may hinder your ability to upgrade. Loose ball bearings get all over the place when you take it apart, and it's just a big headache. So there's some things you need to consider when you're making these upgrades, but for the most part, it's fully upgradable. The primer does not come with any pegs or any hub guards. If you decide that you want to grind, you're gonna have to buy those separately. It's gonna set you back maybe 40 bucks, about 40 bucks. There are 4 size options and 4 color options available in the primer. It's important to know that each color option is tied to a size option. So if you want a 21-inch bike in purple, it's not possible. You can only get that one in black. These are the size and color options. You've got a 20.00-inch top tube in gloss orange soda color, 20.5-inch surf blue, 20.75-inch matte grape soda, and 21-inch black. Those are gonna be your 4 options. Now, I wanna jump in real quick and urge you, please, 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 please do not buy this bike just because of the color. It is way more important to buy the bike based off of your size. You can paint the bike, you can change the color later, you can buy different parts, but get the right size. This is one of the most common mistakes that new riders make. They buy their bike and then they ride it and they're like, man, BMX is hard. BMX is hard, but it's twice as hard when you're on a bike that doesn't fit you properly. So check out and make sure you're getting the right size. Here's who these sizes are for. So the 20.00-inch top tube is best for riders who are between 5 foot and 5'3". The 20.5-inch top tube is best for riders between 5'6" and 5'9". The 20.75-inch top tube is best for riders between 5'9" and 6 foot. And the 21-inch option is best for riders who are over 6 foot. If you're over like 6'4", you're gonna wanna get something like a 21.25. But if you're in between 6 foot, 6'4", I'd go with the 21. This is just a general rule of thumb and a general guide to follow when you're buying a bike and when you're getting into the sport. It's not something that's set in stone, but for a brand new rider, it's important to have a base point and a reference point when getting into the sport. So follow this size guide if you're brand new to the sport. If you've ridden multiple bikes and like you know what you want, obviously you don't have to listen to that. But if you're brand new, please do me a favor and follow it. So for the geometry of the frame, this bike has a 75-degree head tube angle. It has an 8.75-inch standover height. The chainstay length is between 13.2 and 13.5 inches, and the bottom bracket height is 11.5 inches. For the most part, everything on this bike is standard. So a couple important things to point out about that geometry. The 8.75-inch standover height is lower than average, and for someone who's on the 20-inch orange color option, this is gonna feel fine. For someone who's on the 21-inch black option, this standover height might be a little bit too small for you, and it's probably gonna be uncomfortable. Same thing's going with the chainstay length. 13.2 to 13.5 inch chainstay length is long compared to other bikes. And this isn't the end of the world. That chainstay length is going to feel great for someone who's over 6 foot riding the 21-inch option. But for a rider who's 5 foot to 5'3", riding the 20.00-inch option, that long chainstay is going to be very hard to pick up into manuals, do bunny hops, maneuver, just in general. It's going to cause some frustrations for a smaller rider. The handlebars are 9 inches tall and 28.5 inches wide. I think this is a good height and width for handlebars, especially for people who are newer to the sport and don't really know what size they like. When it comes to quality, there's not much to talk about. The frame is fully high tensile steel. The bars are full high tensile steel. The forks are high tensile steel forks. The cranks are 8-spline 3-piece chromoly cranks, and the rims are single wall rims. For a brand new rider who doesn't weigh very much, high tensile steel is going to be fine. Everyone talks bad about it and it's not very good quality, but if you don't weigh very much, you're going to be fine. For someone who weighs over like 130 pounds and you're doing tricks, you're doing bunny hops, you're jumping down stair sets, you want something better than high tensile steel, and this bike is not going to be it for you. I'll go a little bit more in depth about who's it right for and who's it wrong for later, but I just wanted to throw that out there. When it comes to the quality, this bike is a low quality bike, and it's important to know that. However, it does come with the Sunday Freeze top load stem. This is one of my favorite stems of all times, but I was very disappointed to see that it came with Wellgo platform pedals. These are the cheapest, worst pedals that have ever been made. And it's just a standard thing that you see on low quality Walmart bikes and just really low quality bikes in general. You see Wellgo platform pedals. They're terrible, they're trash, and it's like kind of sad that Sunday threw those on there. If you do end up with this bike, I would definitely upgrade the unsealed bearings, I would upgrade the tires, and then I would upgrade something like either the cranks, the forks, or the bars. The way this bike is designed is it's not designed to last you forever, and you should know that going into it if you're about to buy it. This bike is low quality, parts are going to bend, parts are going to break, especially if you're using it for what it's intended for, which is cool stuff. You know, if you're doing cool stuff with it, bad stuff's going to happen. That's just how it goes on a $400 bike. All right. And I want to throw it out there that this bike is designed so that when you break something, you can just upgrade it. I had this experience. You're going to have this experience. You ride the bike and then you come home, your handlebars are bent and you're like, oh man, buy new handlebars. Your forks are bent, buy new forks. Your cranks are bent, your pedals break, like whatever. You just upgrade it with better parts overall. And so over 6 months, over 8 months, as things start to break and as you cause damage to the bike, you're replacing those parts with higher quality upgrades so that eventually you've got a fully custom bike. Is it the perfect way to go? I mean, if you can afford a fully custom bike, go that route. But it's pretty hard to come up with, you know, $1,200, $1,500 to do that. And so this is an alternative option, and the bike is totally designed for that. And I want you to expect things to bend and things to break on this bike if you're actually riding. Okay, so I just want to share some final thoughts and honestly give you the thing here. Is this bike worth it? I'm gonna say no. For $430, you're very close to something like the Kink Gap or even something like the Fly Proton. There are other bikes that you can check out and spend just a little bit more money to buy and get something much higher quality. And ultimately that should be the goal. If one of the colors is the right size for you and you really like that color and you really want to go that route, or you love Brett Silva and you love Sunday and you just want to support Sunday, like that's a different story. But if we're looking at just value and spending your hard-earned money on a bike and getting you the best value, the Sunday Primer isn't it. It's not a very high value bike. It's expensive and it doesn't come with very high quality stuff. You could buy a better quality bike by spending just a little bit more money, because I don't want you getting on the Primer and then being like, oh man, this bike's too small, I hate it, this part broke. Like, I want to help you get the perfect bike. And for most people, the Primer is just not going to be it unless you are a small rider and you need that 20.00 inch top tube. If you're 5 foot to 5'3", this is one of the better options that you can get in a 20.00 inch top tube. Just make sure you get that orange colorway because that's the color that comes with that frame size that you need. I would recommend the Primer for the small guy, the new guy, but that's it. If you're more serious, you're bigger, stay away from the Primer and get something higher quality by spending a little bit more money. The 2023 Sunday Forecaster is actually a pretty decent bike this year. Last year I wasn't a huge fan of it, but they did make some small changes and lower the price to make this bike a better value bike. In this video, I'll tell you everything you need to know about the Sunday Forecaster, and at the end of the video, I'm gonna give you the honest truth. Sometimes I get in trouble for doing that, but I'm just gonna tell you guys straight up whether or not I recommend this bike. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about the 2023 Sunday Forecaster. Real quick, the Sunday Forecaster and the Sunday Forecaster Park are actually different bikes. They have different geometries, just different things about it, okay? Instead of making a whole different Sunday Forecaster Park review, I think I'm just gonna add a section in here. And if I feel like going more in depth, I will go more in depth in a separate video that will be linked in the description or up here on the screen. The Sunday Forecaster is gonna weigh 26.78 pounds. It's a fairly light bike. Everything on the Forecaster is fully customizable and fully upgradable. So you're able to take the bars and replace them with new bars. You're able to change the cranks, the pedals, the stem, whatever you want to change on this bike, you can do that to make it more suitable for you and your ride. Unfortunately, it doesn't come with any pegs, but most of the versions of this bike do come with one hub guard on the drive side. The versions that come with the Clutch V2 Free Coaster have a hub guard on the drive side. side, but not the cassette version. And so just before you buy it, double check if you are getting that hub guard or not. One hub guard literally doesn't matter. It's not that big of a deal, but it's something to point out for sure. This bike does have U-brakes, so if you wanted to stop, you can definitely do so. If you wanted to take the brakes off, everything is removable. Okay, there are lots of options here, so I'm gonna read through the different size and different color options. When you're checking out these bikes, make sure you really look at everything. Sunday is notorious. It's not a bad thing, but they make small differences between different bikes. So for example, the Sunday X last year, one version was a free coaster, one version was a cassette. You really need to check that. The Forecaster, there are versions that are free coasters and there's versions that are cassettes. And it's important for you to understand which version is which, so you don't get stuck with a bike that has a cassette when you really wanted a free coaster, or so on and so forth. But I'll mention them later on, which ones have free coaster, which one have cassette. But I just want to give you that heads up, double check before you buy the bike. Okay, you need to choose between a 20.5 inch Aaron Ross white option, a 20.75 inch matte maroon, a 20.75 Brett Silva fire engine red, and a 21 inch Brock Rayford black. The Brock Rayford black comes in a left-hand drive or a right-hand drive option, which is pretty unique. You can't choose between left-hand drive and right-hand drive for any bike under like $1,000. You can choose that with the We the People Envy and the Sunday Soundwave, and I guess a lot of the fly bikes, but that's pretty rare to be able to choose that, and it's cool that you can do that on the Brock Rayford version. So the 20.5 inch Aaron Ross version is best for those riders who are between 5'6" and 5'9". The 20.75 inch option is best for riders between 5'9" and 6 foot. And that 21 inch option is best for riders who are over 6 foot. If you're significantly over 6 foot, like 6'3", 6'4", I'd say stay away from the 21 and get something like a 21.25. So aside from the top tube length, there are other frame geometries that can have an impact on how your bike handles. I think it's important to take a look at these geometries so you know what to expect on the bike that you're buying. On the Forecaster, you're gonna find a 75.5 degree head tube angle, a 9 inch standover height, a 13.2 to 13.5 inch chainstay, and an 11.7 inch bottom bracket height. So what does that mean? Well, the 75.5 degree head tube angle is going to be a little bit more responsive than the traditional 75 degree head tube angle. This is going to make nose manuals easier to initiate, and it's also going to make steering more snappy and more responsive. This geometry tends to feel better inside bowls and where you do a lot of quick cornering or responsive street riding. The 13.2 to 13.5 inch chainstay is pretty long. Depending on where you run your wheel within that chainstay is going to affect how long your chainstay is, but essentially anything over 13 inches is on the longer side. And if you are riding a bike with a longer chainstay, it's going to feel more stable and it's going to feel more controlled. Your chainstay specifically is going to have an impact with how easy it is to pull that back wheel up and how easy it is to loop out. This chainstay length is going to make it harder to pull it back and get into manuals, harder to pull it back and loop out for bunny hops and things like that. Just a heads up, unless you're really tall, this bike might be a little bit harder to maneuver. But to counteract that, they went ahead and put an 11.7 inch bottom bracket height. This is a more responsive bottom bracket height than we see on the Sunday bikes so far. All of the Sunday bikes cheaper than this came with an 11.5 inch bottom bracket height, and this is going to make it feel a little bit more responsive since your feet are higher up off the ground. The gearing on this bike is 25/9, meaning you've got a 25-tooth sprocket and a 9-tooth driver. Each version of this bike is going to be a right-hand drive bike unless you choose the left-hand drive Brock Rayford version. All of the Sunday Forecaster bikes have a free coaster. It's the Odyssey Clutch V2 free coaster unless you choose the Brett Silva version. The Brett Silva version has a cassette. Okay, so the quality of the bike is pretty important. This is going to determine how much abuse the bike can handle, how good of tricks you can do before you break it, and essentially how long it's going to last. The most important part on this bike is the frame, and the frame on the Sunday Forecaster is going to be full chromoly, much better than the one chromoly down tube found on the Sunday Scout. The forks are high tensile steel fork legs with a chromoly steer tube. This means that the fork legs can bend and can break, especially when you're nose casing jumps or when you're doing disasters or certain tricks. They're going to stretch your fork legs out. It's a bummer, it's something that happens, but that's what you get with a cheaper bike. The handlebars are high tensile steel. The cranks are 8 spline 3-piece full chromoly cranks, and the rims are Odyssey Stage 1 single wall rims. The difference here, they had the cheaper versions just have aluminum single wall rims. The Odyssey Stage 1 rims have an extra thick sidewall, making them a little bit more resistant to dings and to bends, but they're not completely resistant since the rim structure is still weak, but they do have an extra thick sidewall. I like that it has a full chromoly frame, but because of this quality, I still wouldn't recommend this bike for anyone who weighs over 150 pounds. If you weigh over 150 pounds, you're gonna put stress on the high tensile steel bars, the high tensile steel fork legs, the single wall rims, and ultimately you're not gonna have a good experience riding this bike. If you're under 150 pounds, your lightweight isn't gonna have too much of an impact on this bike, and I think it's gonna last you quite a bit longer. Okay, before I get into the final thoughts and tell you the honest truth about this bike, let's talk about the Sunday Forecaster Park version. The Sunday Forecaster Park version is gonna look a little bit different than the traditional Sunday Forecaster BMX bike. And that's because this bike is, well, it's designed for park riding. This bike is gonna be found rocking a gyro brake system instead of a traditional straight cable. It's going to have a much lower standover height and a more responsive frame geometry overall. This is going to give the bike a snappy and responsive feeling so that it can really maneuver skate parks quickly while doing some technical riding. The Forecaster Park is going to cost $579, which is the same amount as the other Forecaster options. Like I said, it does have this gyro brake system, which technically would cost a little bit more for Sunday to produce, so I appreciate the fact that they kept this bike at the same price without it, they didn't increase it because of the gyro. Everything on the bike is fully sealed, fully upgradable, fully customizable. And if for whatever reason, if you did want to take the gyro off, everything on the bike, the hardware, everything's removable. So you can ride this bike with a nice, clean, brakeless look. The front hub has a female axle, which is pretty cool, but the main difference here, pretty much everything's going to be the same as what I explained earlier. The main difference here is going to be the frame geometry. So the head tube angle is 75.5 degrees, which is the same as the other models. The standover height is 7.5 inches, which is why the bike looks so low. This is 1.5 inches shorter than the 9 inches found on the other Sunday Forecasters. So this chainstay length is quite a bit different than the other Forecaster options. If you run this bike completely slammed, your chainstay is going to be about 12.7 inches. If you run it all the way back, it's going to be about 13 inches, which is still shorter than running it slammed on the other bike. What this is going to do is it's going to give you a very responsive feeling bike, like I mentioned earlier. This bike's going to be a dream for tailwhips and snappy responsive tricks like 540s, 720s, just a lot of other things are going to be It's going to be quick and snappy in park, and it's going to feel nice for riding transition. Okay, sometimes I do recommend the Sunday Forecaster. Not a lot, but sometimes I do. It trips me out how much this bike is. It's close to $600. It doesn't have chromoly bars. It doesn't have full chromoly forks. It doesn't have double wall rims. The only thing it has going for it is the frame. Okay, but with that being said, I do still recommend it to certain riders who are under 150 pounds because this bike is clean. It looks nice. It has a good design, and it has a few solid aftermarket parts. But all in all, if you're a value-minded shopper, if you're only looking to spend, like you don't have a huge budget and you want to make sure you get the most bang for your buck, the Sunday Forecaster isn't going to be it. And this bike is priced at a premium because it's Sunday. Okay, it's that simple. I think they just rely on their branding and their marketing, and they sell quite a bit of bikes. But all in all, when you look at the specs, look at the bike, it's overpriced. It's that simple. But it's not as bad as the Sunday Scout. I do still recommend the Forecaster for certain people, unlike the Sunday Scout. But yeah, those are my thoughts. It's a little bit overpriced. And for some people, the Sunday Forecaster is a great bike because they love Sunday, they love how it looks. But for some people, they just can't afford to spend that much money on a bike that doesn't offer the same level of value. For example, if you spend $20 less and get a 2023 Kink Whip, you're getting full chromoly frame, full chromoly forks, full chromoly bars, double wall rims. You're getting much better base quality. Now, it's not going to look as nice as this bike. It's probably not going to ride as nice. Quality wise though, you're not going to have to worry about things breaking and things bending. For like $60 cheaper, you can get the Fly Proton, which is again full chromoly everything, okay? So you have a lot of different options if you don't want to spend this much money, but you still want to get a bike that's better quality, and I will find those bikes for you on the free bike recommendation if you request it. The 2023 Sunday X is a pretty popular BMX bike in Sunday's lineup, okay? The Sunday X is known for having pretty good quality and being signature models for Julian Arteaga and Eric Elstrand. The Sunday X is on the pricey side, but it is the first bike in Sunday's lineup to come with full chromoly frame, forks, handlebars, double wall rims, and all of the core components that I look for when I'm recommending a bike and what I look for to classify a bike as good quality. In this video, I'm going to give you everything there is to know about the Sunday X so that you can decide if this is a good bike for you. The Sunday X is pretty light. It's going to weigh 25.75 pounds, but it is a little bit expensive. No matter which version you get, if you get the Arteaga version or the Elstrand version, it's still going to cost you $629. Everything on the Sunday X is fully upgradable and fully customizable. This is actually a really good quality bike, so right off the bat I wouldn't recommend changing very many parts unless it was just for cosmetic reasons. This bike doesn't come with any pegs, but it does come with one plastic hub guard on the non-drive side in the back. It also comes with U-brakes, so you can stop this bike. It comes equipped with brakes, you don't have to worry about that. One cool thing though is that everything on the brake system is completely removable, so if you wanted to take the brakes off, you can have a nice clean brakeless look if that's more your style. Like I said, it's only available in two different options. The two different options are a 20.75 inch Julian Arteaga cool mint colorway and a 21 inch Eric Elstrand gloss gray colorway. So if you're choosing between the Eric Elstrand or the Julian Arteaga version, you need to understand the top tube size. The 20.75 inch top tube is going to be best for riders who are between 5'9" and 6 foot, while the 21 inch top tube option is best for riders over 6 foot. Although if you're over 6'3", or 6'4", I would recommend getting a 21.25. So along with that top tube size, there are other geometries in the frame that are going to affect how this bike handles. The Sunday X has a 75-degree head tube angle, a 9-inch standover height. The chainstay length is between 13.2 and 13.5 inches. And it has an 11.5 inch bottom bracket height. The head tube angle is pretty average. The 9-inch standover height is pretty average. The chainstay length is on the longer end. If you run your back wheel slammed completely, it's going to be about 13.2 inches. If you run it all the way back, it's going to be about 13.5 inches. And this is a little bit longer. Like I said, it's going to make the bike harder to pull back and initiate a manual, harder to pull back and loop out. But the good part of that is it does give the bike some extra stability and some extra control, so it doesn't feel like it's going to loop out on you all the time. And I'd say the bottom bracket height is slightly lower than average. 11.5 inches is a tiny bit smaller than the 11.6, which is mostly average. This is going to give the bike more stability because your feet are closer to the ground, but I wouldn't say it's going to have that big of an effect on the bike. The forks are pretty responsive with a 25mm offset. The handlebars are 9 inches tall and 29 inches wide. And it comes with a Sunday Freeze top load stem with a 48mm reach. I've ridden this stem for a long time and I really like this stem. Okay, let's talk about quality. One of the most important parts about buying a bike. This frame on the Sunday X is 100% chromoly and it has the wave down tube. The wave down tube, I'm 90% sure, is a patented thing through Sunday because nobody else does it. And if you look closely, you can see the crinkles on the down tube. What this does is it adds extra strength. Straight tubing can bend a lot easier, get dings in it. And the wave down tube just adds extra strength to that to make the whole frame stronger overall. This bike behind me is a Sunday Darkwave. It has the wave down tube. It looks kind of cool and I've never had an issue with it. So I think it's interesting that they include that technology on a $629 bike. Anyway, the frame's full chromoly. So that's good. The forks are full chromoly, which is a nice added touch because the Forecaster was not full chromoly, but these forks do have a 2-piece steer tube. The handlebars are full chromoly 4-piece handlebars on the Sunday X. It has 8-spline 3-piece full chromoly cranks, and it comes with Odyssey Stage 2 rims. So if you remember in the Forecaster review, it comes with Odyssey Stage 1 rims, and the Stage 1 rims are single wall rims with an extra thick sidewall. These Stage 2 rims are cheap double wall rims, but they're double wall rims nonetheless. I'd say they're very similar to the Mission Mylar rims that you're going to see on the Kink Whip and the Kink Switch. But they're double wall rims. That's great. One thing I want to point out that double check before you get the bike. If you do your due diligence, there's something on Sunday's website and other websites that sell this bike where they mention it depends on what they were sent as to what rims you're gonna get. I know this sounds bizarre, okay? But it essentially says Odyssey Stage 2 rims or Sunday Lightning rims, whichever ones are available. Sunday Lightning rims are cheap single wall rims with an extra thick sidewall. They are not nearly as good as the Stage 2 rims. So you're gonna wanna make sure that you're getting the bike with the Stage 2 rim. The 2022 version and the 2021 version of the Sunday X came with single wall rims, and so it's nice to see in 2023 they've got double wall rims. But if they're gonna still send out bikes with single wall rims because of availability, that's not good, and you need to know that. So I'm not 100% sure what's going on. I think you're gonna get the Sunday or the Odyssey Stage 2 rims, but honestly, double check because you never know. You never know, and that's crazy that that's even an option. So because of this quality, I'm not really gonna give the bike a weight limit, but if I had to assign a number, I'd say around 200 pounds. I'd keep it close to that number, you know, maybe 210, 220, you'd be fine. But if you're significantly heavier, like 250 plus, even though this is full chromoly and this is good quality stuff, you're gonna have issues. You know, chain braking, the Sunday Sabertooth sprocket bending, it's just a steel sprocket, it's not an alloy sprocket. Things are gonna happen if you're over 250 pounds. If you're right around 200 or less, this quality is gonna be good and it's gonna last you quite a long time. Okay, so final thoughts. I think the Sunday X is a solid bike. I liked the Sunday X last year, and I especially like it this year because of some of the quality improvements that we've seen. Does that make the bike worth $629? The answer is gonna be no. This is a good bike and I do recommend it for quite a few people, but it is a premium price. It's an overpriced bike. It's a premium bike, just like We the People. Okay, We the People bikes are generally overpriced for what you're getting quality wise, but they're nice. They're like the BMW and the Mercedes and the Porsche of the BMX world. And so is some of Sunday's bikes. I'd say this bike has close attention to detail, like the Wave down tube, okay? There are small aftermarket parts that make this bike a little bit better than some of the cheaper brands that you might see, but it doesn't change the fact that, in my opinion, this bike is a little bit overpriced. Like I said, a lot of you guys probably got this bike on your bike recommendation, and that's why you're watching this video. And if I sent it to you on the free bike recommendation, this is one of the best bikes you can get. You can spend a little bit more and get something, you know, get something about the same quality. You can spend about the same and get something slightly better quality, but for the most part, this is going to be a fair option. It doesn't change the fact it's slightly overpriced, and I just want you guys to know that. If you look at the Dougsterbob app, you can see the value score on this bike, and you can see how that value score compares to other bikes at the similar price, okay? Double check that, but I just wanted to share my honest thoughts about this bike. So the Sunday Street Sweeper is Jake Seeley's signature BMX bike. This is the first bike in Sunday's lineup where we do see a signature frame. And I'm pretty excited about that. The frame quality is great on this bike, but everything else is about average, very similar to the Sunday X, okay? Now, let's get right into it. I'm just gonna tell you everything that you need to know about the Sunday Street Sweeper so that you can decide if this is a good bike for you. No ball. I'd classify the Street Sweeper as a high-level bike. Not quite a pro-level bike like the bikes we're going to talk about later in Sunday's lineup, but I'd classify it as a high-level bike. This bike is very light. It's going to weigh 24.97 pounds, and that is with the brakes removed. This bike does come with brakes, but you can take them off. Everything's removable, the mounting hardware, everything, so you can get a nice clean look if brakeless is your thing. It's going to cost you $829. Everything on the bike is fully upgradable and fully customizable. It doesn't come with any pegs, but it comes with one hub guard on the non-drive side of the Odyssey Clutch V2 Free Coaster. Your only option for this bike is a 20.75 inch top tube in matte lavender colorway, and it's available in a left-hand drive and a right-hand drive. So that 20.75 inch top tube is going to be best for riders who are between 5'9" and 6 foot. If you're way taller than that or you're way smaller than that, it's best to look for a top tube size. It's going to be a little bit different. So the top tube size isn't the only geometry that matters here. We have multiple other geometries on the frame that will affect how this bike handles and how it feels for you. The head tube angle is 75.25 degrees. The standover height is 8.85 inches. The chainstay length is 12.7 to 13 inches. Depending on where you run your back wheel in that chainstay determines how long your chainstay is. And the bottom bracket height's 11.7 inches. The head tube angle is slightly responsive. It's a 1/4 of an inch steeper than the average that you're gonna find on most BMX bikes. The standover height is slightly lower, but really the head tube angle and the standover height, while they are a little bit different than average, it's not different enough to make a huge difference. Man, I feel like I said difference so many times. But what is different is the chainstay length. This is a very short and responsive chainstay length. This chainstay length is the exact same as the Sunday Forecaster Park Edition. So the shorter chainstay length brings the back wheel closer to the front wheel, giving you a shorter wheelbase and ultimately making the back end more responsive and more snappy. So pulling back into a manual can happen easier, spins are gonna feel easier and things like that. This is a pretty responsive back end, but the rest of the bike is average and it's not going to have too much of an impact on your riding or your riding style. The forks on this bike have a responsive 25mm offset, and it comes equipped with the Sunday Freeze 48mm top load stem. I currently ride the Sunday Freeze stem. I really like this stem and it's very affordable, it's very light, but the short 48mm reach brings your bars a little bit closer to your head tube so that bar spins feel quite a bit easier. Let's talk about the quality of this bike because that's really all you guys care about. That's the biggest thing. If the bike fits you, next thing you need to know is how good it is. And like I said, this is the aftermarket Sunday Street Sweeper frame. Aftermarket frames are much higher quality than the plain full chromoly frames that you'll find on something like the Kink Whip, the Cult Devotion and things like that. Those are full chromoly frames and that's great, but when you talk about an aftermarket chromoly frame, that's just a huge step in quality. The forks are also full chromoly, although they're not aftermarket chromoly. The bars are full chromoly 4-piece handlebars. They come equipped with a bar pad, and this is a weird thing. I haven't seen this on a complete bike in a very long time. Sunday's changing it up a little bit, Jake Seeley's changing it up a little bit, and we're doing a complete bike with a bar pad. The cranks are 8-spline, 3-piece full chromoly cranks, and the rims are Odyssey quadrant rims. These are double wall rims, and these are actually really high quality rims that you could purchase aftermarket and build custom wheels with. So it's really cool to see this. I talk a lot about rims. I think rims are some really important things because replacing a back wheel or a front wheel gets very expensive. So having high quality double wall rims, perfect. Now I'm pretty impressed with the aftermarket Sunday Street Sweeper frame. I'm pretty impressed with the Odyssey Clutch V2 free toaster, and I'm very impressed with the Odyssey Twisted PC pedals. The Odyssey Twisted PC pedals that come with this bike are aftermarket pedals, and they're not super expensive pedals, but they grip good and they last a very long time. So overall, because of this quality, I'm not gonna give this bike a weight limit. I think you could ride this bike comfortably and confidently, no matter what your weight is. You know, if you weigh 200 pounds, 230, 240, 250, this bike for the most part is gonna hold up pretty good. And the reason I say that is that aftermarket full chromoly frame. The full chromoly bars, the full chromoly forks, and those strong double wall rims. These are what I call core components, and I think it's very important for a new rider or a heavier rider to consider the core components that they're getting with their bike before they buy it. If you buy a bike with weaker core components and these components break, it's very costly to replace them. For example, if you buy a cheap BMX bike like the Sunday Scout without a full chromoly frame or an aftermarket chromoly frame, and you put some abuse on that bike and you break your frame, guess how much a frame replacement is going to cost you? $400 to $500 just for the frame, and that's the same cost as the bike. So if you can buy a bike with good quality core components, you won't have to necessarily worry about replacing those parts very soon. So it would just be bad to get a bike with bad core components, and you'd be spending way more money replacing those core components if they were to break than you would if you had just spent a little bit more and got a bike that comes with good quality core components. You wouldn't have to worry about it. So final thoughts here. I do recommend the Sunday Street Sweeper if you have a good budget. The only people I would recommend this for is people who are tall enough to fit comfortably on it, okay, between 5'9" and 6 foot, and also people who need good quality core components, people who weigh over 200 pounds and want a bike that can last quite a bit without having to worry about parts breaking. That's really it. If you're new to the sport and you don't have any experience and you're not heavy and you're not gonna break it, you don't need a bike this expensive. You can get by just fine on a $500 bike, a $600 bike. You don't need to spend $830. But If you need a high quality bike and you want these good components because you're scared about breaking them, I totally recommend this bike if that's the case. The Sunday Wavelength is a brand new bike to Sunday's 2023 lineup. This is Gary Young's signature BMX bike, and it's changed. Last year, the Sunday Soundwave Special was Gary Young's signature bike. This year, it's the Sunday Wavelength. The reason for that is Gary Young was having Sunday modify his Soundwave frames a little bit because he likes a really long, stable chainstay. And instead of doing that and having the Soundwave be a signature bike this year, they just said, hey, let's take this frame that we're already modifying for you, the modified Soundwave, okay, and let's turn it into a signature frame for you. And so they did, and what we got is the Wavelength. I'll talk about everything you need to know about the Wavelength in this video, and you'll see just how long the chainstay is and how it's kind of ridiculous, in my opinion. Let's get into it. Let's talk about the Sunday Wavelength. The Sunday Wavelength doesn't specify a weight yet. Eventually, I'm sure they're going to say, hey, you know, this is the weight of the Wavelength, and I'm going to guess it's going to be right under 25 pounds, but we don't know that for sure. It's a very expensive bike. It's going to cost you $1,249. The reason for that high price tag is everything on the bike is essentially aftermarket, and if you were to build this bike up separately by purchasing all the parts included on it, you would be spending much more than $1,249. So by buying the Wavelength complete, you're actually getting a pretty good deal. This bike doesn't come with any pegs, but it does come with one hub guard on the non-drive side. It does come with brakes, but the brake hardware and the brakes are completely removable if you want to ride brakeless with a nice clean look. It comes in a 21-inch top tube in matte army green colorway. It's available in left-hand drive and right-hand drive. The top tube on the Wavelength is going to be 21 inches, meaning it's best for riders who are over 6 foot. If you're significantly over 6 foot, I'd say over 6'3", you want to consider like the Sunday Darkwave, which is a 21.25 inch top tube. If you're over 6'3", just get a taller top tube than the 21. But if you're between 6 foot and 6'3", this 21 inch top tube is going to be perfect for you. Also, I'd say if you're over 5'9", and you like a really stable and controlled feeling bike, you can go ahead and get this 21 inch top tube Wavelength. But let's talk about the good stuff. This frame geometry is a little bit different than what you would traditionally see on a complete BMX bike. It's got a 75-degree head tube angle, a 9-inch standover height. The chainstay length is 13.65 to 14 inches. This is a crazy long chainstay length. I really can't think of any complete bikes that come with a chainstay length this long, and it has a low 11.5 inch standover height. So the head tube angle is normal, the standover height's normal. What's not normal about this bike is the huge chainstay. Okay, this is gonna push your back wheel farther away from your front wheel and give you a much more stable feeling bike. Pulling up into manuals is gonna be harder, but controlling the manual is gonna be a little bit easier. Spins are gonna be a little bit harder, and going fast and going high is gonna feel really comfortable because the bike is so stable. The bottom bracket height is also a little bit unique because it's 11.5 inches. This means that your bottom bracket is closer to the ground, making the bike feel, again, more stable and more controlled. It's not a huge difference from the average bottom bracket height, but you will feel a little bit of stability come out of this bottom bracket height. The forks are going to be 28 millimeters of offset. The cranks are 170 millimeter Odyssey caliber cranks. Comes equipped with a Sunday Freeze 48 millimeter reach top load stem and an Odyssey anagram cassette hub that's switchable between right-hand drive and left-hand drive. This bike has a 25:9 gear ratio and it's a cassette. But let's talk about the quality. This bike is a full aftermarket quality Sunday Wavelength frame. There's a lot of attention to detail put into this frame, and this is, like I said, it's a really high quality frame. It comes with the aftermarket Sunday Darkwave forks. These forks have the 41 thermal lifetime warranty. It has the aftermarket Odyssey Superhighway bars. These bars also have the lifetime 41 thermal warranty. It comes equipped with Odyssey caliber cranks. I'm currently running these cranks. I also love these cranks a lot. They don't have the 41 thermal warranty like the Odyssey Thunderbolt cranks do, but they're pretty good cranks. And then it comes equipped with Odyssey Hazard Light aftermarket double wall rims. These are amazing rims. They're very expensive, but they hold up very well. This bike is a pro level bike. It doesn't have a weight limit. Really, no matter what your weight is, as long as you fit on this bike, you can confidently ride this bike knowing that nothing's gonna break. And if some components do break, they might have that 41 thermal lifetime warranty, which means you can get it replaced at no cost to you and just have a new part. Okay, so do I recommend this bike? And the answer is going to be yes, if you're looking for a pro level bike. Here's a thing that I talk about sometimes is I really hate to push people to buy an incredibly expensive bike if they don't need it. The sad reality is a lot of people buy a BMX bike and they don't stick to the sport. And that's fine, okay? I don't expect everyone to stick to the sport. I would like that, but the reality is it's not the case. And if you are gonna only be riding for a year, 2 years, you can get by on a $600-700 bike that's gonna be very high quality, and you don't necessarily need a $1,300 BMX bike to do that. This $1,300 BMX bike is gonna feel amazing. You can be confident that the bike is gonna last a very long time, and it's gonna be light. It's a light, high quality BMX bike, and it's got good pro level geometry, especially if you're interested in a long, stable feeling chainstay like you would have rode in the 90s or the early 2000s. This chainstay is very similar to what frames had back then. And so if that's something that interests you, I definitely recommend this bike. But if you're not planning to stick to the sport, I don't recommend this bike. You can get by with the $830 Street Sweeper, the Kink Cloud, this Cult Devotion. You don't need a super expensive bike if you don't plan to ride it very long. But if you love the sport, you want to keep riding, and you want something that's incredibly high quality with a long, stable chainstay, the Wavelength is a great bike, and I do recommend it if that sounds like you. The 2023 Sunday Soundwave is an incredibly high quality bike from Sunday. This bike has been advertised as the best complete bike that money can buy for the last few years, and they're really not lying when they say that. This bike has a lot of high quality aftermarket parts. Many of them come with a lifetime 41 thermal warranty. In this video, we're going to talk about the Sunday Soundwave Special Complete bike. I'm going to tell you everything that there is to know about it. There are a few weird quirks, I guess is what you'd call it, with this bike. So make sure you pay attention to the whole video so you don't get bamboozled when you buy your Sunday Soundwave BMX bike. Let's get right into it. The Sunday Soundwave is an incredibly light bike. It's actually one of the lightest complete BMX bikes available this year. It's going to weigh 23.41 pounds. However, it's on the pricier side. It's going to cost you $1,299. Everything on this bike is fully customizable and upgradable. Although everything on it is already aftermarket, so usually you'd want to upgrade a bike that's not very high quality with aftermarket parts. This bike already comes with aftermarket parts, so I wouldn't really recommend upgrading it right away. But if you decided that you wanted to upgrade it, it's totally possible. This bike doesn't come with any pegs, but it does come with 3 hub guards and not 4. The only hub guard that's missing is the drive side hub guard on the Free Coaster. It does come with brakes, and the brake hardware and the brakes themselves are completely removable, so you can have a nice clean look if you decide to ride brakeless. And that weight that I mentioned earlier is the weight with the brakes removed. So if you're running the brakes, it's going to weigh a little bit more. The top tube size for this bike is 21 inches. The 21-inch top tube is going to be best for riders who are over 6 foot. Although if you're crazy tall, like 6'3", 6'4", I would recommend getting a 21.25 instead of the 21. The 21 might be a little bit small if you're feel a little bit small if you're over 6'3". And if you're like 5'9", 5'10", and up, and you like to have a bike that feels more stable, this 21-inch top tube wouldn't be bad, although your best bet would be a 20.75. Aside from that top tube size, we have other frame geometries that we need to talk about. The head tube angle on the Sunday Soundwave is 75 degrees. The standover height is 9 inches. The chainstay length is between 13.2 and 13.5 inches. Depending on where you run your back wheel is going to determine how long your chainstay is. And the bottom bracket height is 11.5 inches. Overall, this is a pretty average geometry set. The only thing that I will point out is the 13.2 to 13.5 chainstay. While this isn't as long as the 13.6 to 14-inch chainstay found on the Sunday Wavelength, it is still fairly long. Most bikes are around 13 to 13.2, so if you run this bike with your back wheel all the way back and you're riding it at 13.5 on the chainstay, that's going to feel a little bit long. And what this is going to do is it's going to bring your back wheel farther away from your front wheel, increase your wheel wheelbase and give you a more stable and controlled feeling bike. Pulling back into manuals are going to be a little bit harder, but controlling the manual is going to be easier, and spins will also be harder. But going high speed, going really fast and going really high is going to feel fine because the bike feels stable. The forks have a 28mm offset. The bars are 9.5 inches tall. The cranks are 170 millimeters long. The stem is a 48mm reach Sunday Freeze top load stem. This is a great stem. The 48mm reach brings your bars a little bit closer to your head tube, which ultimately makes bar spins easier. So let's talk about the quality. This bike has the aftermarket Sunday Soundwave frame. This is like a very expensive frame if you were to buy it separately, and this is the exact same aftermarket frame that a lot of pro Sunday riders ride. It has the 41 thermal lifetime warranty on this frame, which means if you do run into any issues with it, you can get it replaced by Sunday for free. It comes with aftermarket Sunday Darkwave forks. These also have the 41 thermal lifetime warranty. It comes with the aftermarket Odyssey Super Highway bars. Like I said, these are 9.5 inches tall, and they also have the lifetime 41 thermal warranty. The cranks are Odyssey Thunderbolt 2.5 piece cranks. These cranks are very strong, very high quality, and they have the 41 thermal lifetime warranty. The rims are double wall Odyssey Hazard Light rims. These are expensive and very strong. Double wall rims from Odyssey. These will last you a very long time, and they are aftermarket rims that most people choose to put when they build their own custom wheels. The quality on the Soundwave is incredible. Because of this, this is one of the best bikes only because of that warranty that's found on the frame, the forks, the bars, and the cranks. High-end We The People bikes have a lifetime guarantee on sometimes the frame and the forks. The other high-end Sunday bikes have the guarantee on the bars and the forks, but not the cranks unless they're using the Thunderbolts, but most are using the caliber and not the frame. And so this is crazy. And for this reason, the Soundwave's been ranked as the best quality BMX bike on the Dougsterbob app for quite a long time. It's just an incredibly high quality bike, and you have that warranty on those very expensive main components. So if something does break, you're not shelling out hundreds of dollars to replace it. You're just calling up Odyssey on the phone and saying, hey, I have a little issue here. And that's nice. So I definitely recommend this bike. My real thoughts here is this is a great bike, high quality, and I would agree that this is one of the best BMX bikes that money can buy, especially in 2023. The 2023 Sunday Darkwave is a high-end BMX bike built for street riders who are pretty tall. I talk highly about this bike, and last year I talked way too much about it that I actually ended up buying a Sunday Darkwave frame and building out my own version of this complete BMX bike. I think this is a great bike for taller riders who want something that's very high quality. It differs from the other high-end Sunday completes like the Sunday Soundwave and the Sunday Wavelength, but it has its own unique purpose, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video. I'll tell you everything there is to know about the Sunday Darkwave and help you decide if this is a good bike for you to buy, and maybe it's not. And if that's the case, I will give you an option to get a recommendation from me. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the 2023 Sunday Darkwave BMX bike. The Sunday Darkwave comes equipped with 4 pegs, 4 hub guards, okay? And thinking of that, this is gonna be a heavy bike, but it's actually only 24.97 pounds. It's under 25 pounds, and it's very rare that you find a complete bike that weighs less than 25 pounds. So Sunday Darkwave gets a green check mark here. It's very expensive though. It's going to cost you $1,299. Everything on the bike is fully upgradable and fully customizable, although it's all aftermarket. It's all incredibly high quality. So you shouldn't want to change very much on this bike unless it's just for like cosmetics or sizing. If you need smaller handlebars, you need longer cranks, whatever it may be. That's the only reason I recommend changing anything on the bike. But if it does come down to that, everything's replaceable. Bike's gonna come with 4 pegs and only 3 hub guards. It comes with the Odyssey Clutch V2 Free Coaster, which has a hub guard on the non-drive side, but not a hub guard on the drive side. It's interesting, it's weird, but 3 pegs, 4 hub guards, okay? It does come with brakes if you decide to ride brakes on this bike, although it's pictured brakeless, and if you do want to take the brakes off, the hardware is removable, the brakes are removable, and you can have a nice clean look if you decide to ride brakeless. So there's technically 2 variations of this bike. They're kind of the same, they're kind of different. And this is a weird quirk that Sunday does. Man, Sunday is just so confusing with their different models. It's like Sunday Forecaster, but then within the Forecaster, there's like 6 different options, and each one's a little bit different. It's not just color. And the Darkwave, they threw a whoop-de-whoop at me and tricked me a little bit because I didn't notice this early on, but here we go. We have a 21.25 inch top tube, which is normal for the Sunday Darkwave, and it comes in matte dark brown. The crazy thing here is that the 21.25 inch top tube option is a left-hand drive option. And if you choose the 21 inch top tube option that is also matte dark brown, it's a right-hand drive option. So tall riders get a left-hand drive bike, and small tall riders get a right-hand drive bike. I don't understand. I really don't, but it is what it is. Maybe they didn't sell very many 21.25 inch bikes last year, so they're like, oh, let's make a 21 inch. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. If you guys know what's going on, let me know in the comments, because it's confusing. But those are your two options: left-hand drive, right-hand drive, 21.25 or 21, both in the matte dark brown colorway. And I don't like this colorway this year either. I liked it a lot last year, but this matte dark brown just looks like rust. It looks like rusty brown. I'm not a fan, but some of you guys might be a fan. And if you like that color, you know, do your thing. Embrace your colors, but it's not my color. I wouldn't buy it, okay? So with the frame size, you've got the 21 inch option that's gonna be best for riders who are between 6 foot and I'd say like 6'3". If you're between there, the 21 inch option is gonna feel good for you. If you are over 6'3" or over 6'2", check out the 21.25 inch option, because that's going to be the better, that size is going to feel more comfortable for you. So aside from that top tube size, the rest of the frame is a little bit unique with the geometries. The head tube length is going to be 75.25 degrees. The standover height is going to be 9.25 inches. The chainstay is going to be between 13.2 and 13.5 inches long, and the bottom bracket height is going to be 11.7 inches. Overall, this geometry is a little bit weird. The head tube angle is a quarter of a degree steeper than average, which is going to make the front end feel more snappy and more responsive, although a quarter of a degree isn't a huge thing. Half a degree, yes. A quarter of a degree, you won't notice too much. The standover height is a little bit taller than average at 9.25 inches. This is going to make it easier to grab your seat for toboggans or pinch your seat when you're doing bar spin. The chainstay length is a little bit longer than average. If you run it all the way back, it's going to be closer to 13.5 inches, which is incredibly long. Ultimately, this is going to make your bike feel more stable, more responsive, and more controlled at high speeds. If you're going really fast and really high like Corey Walsh, you're going to want a frame with a longer geometry like this, so it feels stable and you don't feel like you're going to die when you're going fast. And then the last thing, the bottom bracket height is 11.75 inches, which is pretty high compared to average. 11.6 is average, and this higher bottom bracket height is going to get your feet higher off the ground, and it's going to give the bike a more responsive feeling. So ultimately, a lot of this geometry gives the bike a responsive feeling, except the standover height and the chainstay length. Those kind of help mellow things out. It's got forks with a 28mm offset. The handlebars are 9.8 inches tall. The cranks are 170 millimeters long. It has the Odyssey Brock stem with a 50 millimeter reach, and the gear ratio is 25:9. The sprocket has a bash guard, which is pretty cool, and you don't find that on very many complete bikes either. So let's get into the quality. The Sunday Darkwave frame is an aftermarket, high quality, full chromoly frame. This is a great frame. The forks are Sunday Darkwave forks, like I said, with that 28mm offset. These forks have the Odyssey 41 thermal lifetime warranty. The bars are the aftermarket Odyssey Brock bars and 9.8 inches tall, and these also have the 41 thermal lifetime warranty. The cranks are aftermarket Odyssey Thunderbolt cranks. These are high-end cranks. They also come with the 41 thermal lifetime warranty. These are some of the best cranks you can buy, although they're not 48 spline because they're 2.5 piece cranks, and some people are going to prefer the 48 spline for, you know, drive sprocket and spline drive sprocket and things like that. But anyway, these are great cranks, and they have the 41 thermal lifetime warranty. The rims are the Odyssey Hazard Light double wall rims. These are high-end aftermarket double wall rims that most people run, especially when they build up a custom wheel, because of their balance of weight and strength. This is an incredibly high quality bike, and it would be right next to the Sunday Soundwave if the frame had a lifetime warranty like the Sunday Soundwave frame. Everything else on this bike, I mean, everything in general is really high quality, and it's pretty rare to find a frame with a lifetime warranty. But because of that, the bike's gonna rank just slightly under the Soundwave in terms of quality. It's a high quality bike. It's an incredibly good pro level BMX bike, but the frame doesn't have the warranty like the Soundwave, so it's gonna just be down a little bit. It's gonna be next to the Sunday Wavelength frame. It's a really good bike, and because of the quality, I'd say that there isn't a weight limit on this bike. If you weigh 250 pounds or more, this bike's gonna be fine. If you weigh 100 pounds, this bike's gonna be fine. It's a really high quality bike, and you shouldn't worry about parts breaking prematurely on you like you would if you had like a $500 bike or a $600 bike. You got to worry about things breaking. Not on this one. Okay, so the honest truth here is I do recommend this bike, and I think it's a really high quality bike. Just like the Sunday Soundwave and the Sunday Wavelength though, I will say that if you're brand new to the sport and you're not sure if you're going to stick to the sport and you're not sure if you're going to keep riding, maybe don't spend $1,300 on this bike. It's a good bike. I recommend it. But if you're going to buy the bike and ride for a few months, this is a bad bike, because as soon as you buy it, you're not going to be able to sell it anywhere near what you paid for it. And I just want everyone to be mindful of that. If you're going to buy a super high-end bike, make sure that you're committed to getting into the sport and progressing. You want this bike because it's going to last you as you learn these high-level tricks, or you want this bike because you're a heavier rider and you don't want to have to deal with parts breaking, or you just like to have nice things and the $1,300 hit isn't a big deal to you.